You're listening to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum and James. How you going, boys?
Hello, I'm okay.
Very good. So tonight we're talking about Mission Impossible. Yes, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Yes.
Which we thought came out, this week, but it came out last week.
Yeah, we thought it was going to come out this Thursday, and then Callum's like, let's go Saturday, last Saturday, and I said, Callum, movies don't come out on Saturday.
No.
And
When you're Tom Cruise.
And he's just like, no, Tom Cruise came to Australia, came to Sydney.
And it was his birthday.
For the premiere,
Yeah.
and was like, surprised we're releasing it. I'm like, damn straight we're going Saturday.
Yeah. Also, smart tactical choice because now you're not competing with the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
Barbie
even think
Heimer.
about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was always the week before those, but yeah, I guess it gets a longer
A longer
run.
A bit of a head
And
start.
also, my friend was telling me that because Indiana Jones flopped, they're taking the opportunity to like get rid of Indiana Jones and put as many screens for Mission Impossible as possible,
Yeah.
including the IMAX showings, and like just going for it. And it's one of those movies that is worth seeing multiple times and on the biggest screen, loudest screen possible.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about, probably not going to see it again, but I definitely want to rewatch it as soon as it comes out.
Yeah, if I had the time and money, I'd go straight away, but I'm not sure if I'll get out to see it again.
When we saw it on a Saturday night, 9:30 session, extreme screen at Hoyt's. And a bunch of people brought their kids with them, ranging of all ages, James, and some of these kids had iPads. So
it was one of the
rough.
worst.
It was rough.
This is why we usually don't go on a Saturday.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's why I said usually we go on a Monday night.
Yeah.
Because there's less risk of this happening. But it was a nightmare, man.
I got lucky. The session I went to, I think there was one kid, and he was not too young, but not too old either, so it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
But these were kids playing on phones, iPads,
Oh, yeah,
what
that's
have you. Like the volume up.
Oh.
And they knew what they were doing because someone called the usher in, or one of the ushers in, and when the usher was standing there, everyone stopped.
Yeah. So some of the emotional impact was stunted because I was busy listening to cartoons.
At least I couldn't see any vaping, so...
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
that's happened before.
So yeah, we
as
went
well.
and saw Dead Reckoning.
Yeah, okay. Should I go on my rant?
Takes away, James.
Okay. So, I've talked about this on the show before, but it was years ago. It was like pre-pandemic days of Tuesday Review, and back on the old show when we reviewed the last Mission Impossible movie, Fallout. Callum and Nathan love Tom Cruise to a fault.
Yeah.
As an actor.
That's fair enough.
I recognise the man may have some...
You can separate the...
controversy.
Yeah. But it's to a point where it's like, it doesn't matter how bad the movie is. If it's got Tom Cruise in it, they'll be there. And they'll be championing it, and they'll think it's good. They think The Mummy is a good movie.
It wasn't that bad.
It's not a good movie.
No, look, compared... Well, you know my feelings. Compared to the Brendan Fraser one, it's not good.
Yeah.
But on its own merits as an adventure film, it's fine. Continue.
I feel like you only give it a pass because of Tom Cruise, even though it is objectively an awful movie. But anyway, this is my point. Is because of this, if you say this movie with Tom Cruise is good, I can't believe you.
He doesn't take it at face value.
And I've always been, I like Tom Cruise, but not, if he's in something, I'm not like, wow, awesome. I'm just kind of like, I like, Collateral's awesome. I like Risky Business, Rain Man, whatever. But if it's a bad movie or it's a movie I don't vibe with, Tom Cruise isn't going to save it for me. And I'm not going to seek out a movie just because he's in it.
He's not like a Philip Seymour Hoffman guy where if he's in it,
he's going to be good. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not going to seek out it just because it's got Tom Cruise in it. And I had seen the first 3 Mission Impossible movies. And then before Fallout came out in 2018, I was like, you know what, let's watch... No, I've seen the first 4.
Yeah. And
before Fallout came out, which was number 6, we were like, let's marathon all 6 movies, 5 movies
you could
leading
probably
up
skip
to Fallout. 2. Even you guys, as much as you love Tom Cruise...
2 is not a good
2
movie.
is awful. Even people who love Mission Impossible don't like 2. 2 is not good. But yeah, that's always been my thing is I've never really been a big fan of the Mission Impossible movies. I think the first one's pretty good. Second one's awful. Everyone can agree on that.
Yeah.
Third one's pretty good, I guess. It's the only J.J. Abrams directed movie that I'd consider good. I think all these movies are awful except for Mission Impossible 3. Mission Impossible 4 is the one everyone goes nuts about, Ghost Protocol.
I like it.
And
That's the kind of the first more
That's like the
modern.
Yeah, that's like closer to what we're getting now. It's the Fast Five to Mission Impossible,
exactly.
if you will.
Yeah.
I appreciate the stunts and the practical kind of aspect of it, but I think it's as a movie, it's not that great. And I think after the Burj Khalifa scene, it nosedives. The end of that movie is boring. And as much as I like Michael Nyqvist, the actor who plays the villain, it's like a boring, unmemorable. Yeah. Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible 5, boring. I hate it. Again, stunts, car chases, really cool. Like, I love the stunts. I love the practical elements. But that movie, I was on, like, my last...
Was that a Christopher McQuarrie film?
Yes. That was his first in Mission Impossible. And that's, like... That's when I turned to you guys.
So you're torn between loving and appreciating all the practical stunts and the story aspects.
And that's the thing. I was with Callum was talking about it before we started recording. It's just like, I can always appreciate Tom Cruise's... physicality and the fact that
his willingness to put it on the line for the audience.
For our entertainment. And you can tell he loves movies and loves making movies and wants to make the best, most entertaining movie for the audience. And I've always appreciated that, even if I haven't liked a certain movie he's in. But that feeling doesn't save an entire movie. You know, everyone talks about the opera scene of Rogue Nation. I'm like, but that doesn't save a boring movie.
Yeah.
And then we saw Fallout. So I watched them all, and then we saw Fallout in 2018 at the cinema. And I remember I was sitting next to Nathan, and it opens with a dream sequence. And I turned to Nathan, and I cringed, and I said, "I'm sorry, Nathan, I can't do it. This is awful. This is just cringe." And then the movie kept going. I'm like, "Hey, this is pretty good." By the end of the movie, I was like, "This is the best movie. I love it." And ever since then, so it's been what, 5 years?
Now you're cruising for cruise with the rest of the boys.
It's been 5 years since Fallout, and you know, with the pandemic and everything, it's like we kept hearing about Dead Reckoning is going to come out, and and there's going to be Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Part 2. It's going to be the double finale,
like the Avengers kind of Endgame, and
I'm like, if the writer director Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise can replicate what they did in Fallout in Dead Reckoning, I'm like, this is going to be awesome. But then I kind of got a bit worried, especially with the pandemic. I'm like, what if it's back to stuff I don't like again? At least I'll always have Fallout. That's what I used to say. So Dead Reckoning, after being delayed for so long, has finally come out. No spoilers for now. We'll talk about spoilers at the end. It finally came out, and I'm like watching the trailers and stuff. I'm like, I think this is going to be good. Like, I think it'll live up to
the hype.
And it'll live up to Fallout, which I really, really liked. And I rewatched the first movie, and then I did watch one of those YouTube recaps of all, because I'd seen them and I remember them, but I just to refresh
some of the details.
And then I rewatched Fallout, and which is so good. And then I went to the movies and I saw Dead Reckoning Part 1, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was awesome.
Excellent.
11 out of 10. If you're like me and you're like a bit iffy or whatever, this is definitely worth seeing on the big screen.
Yeah.
And also, I'm doing the clap hands emojis.
Yeah.
This is what a big budget movie is supposed to be.
That's
not CGI garbage, not actors walking in front of a green screen.
I mean, we've talked
actual practical stunts and effects and whatever.
I don't know if we talked about it on air when Tom Cruise was opening this movie or whatever. People were asking him about it, and he's like, audiences can tell the difference.
Yeah.
And he talks about respecting the audience, and people know when it feels fake.
You know how last week and probably a lot of other episodes, we always say, like, the general audience at the end of the day doesn't really care. Like, they love that CGI garbage because it's just loud and it's in your face, and they eat their popcorn and they go home and they don't think about it. Whereas we're always like, hey, put some effort in. If you're going to spend $300 million on a movie,
make it look like it.
Actually do things and go places. Don't just film it on a green screen. And I think Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a perfect example of this, where they did all these things. They they filmed the actual train going off a track and into a cliff, into a valley, and crashing.
I thought that was CG.
No.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, they filmed Tom Cruise riding a motorbike off the cliff and then parachuting off,
and he did that like 100 times,
6 times,
just to get it right.
6
I
times.
say,
Yeah.
when we saw it, when he did that, the audience clapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, the audience clapped like it was like when Cap picks up the hammer. It was like that reaction.
But it's just like that's like. Yeah.
It's like he wasn't there, man.
And I think the fact that Indiana Jones has flopped. One, because the fourth movie was awful and no one cares anymore.
Never made a fourth movie.
And Harrison Ford is 80 whatever years old. No one cares anymore. But also, the trailer looked crap. It was all CGI garbage.
Yeah.
And apparently, Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny is one of the most expensive movies ever made. I'm like, can't tell, buddy.
Well, they had something like 100 people working on the de-aging segments of the movie.
That's probably why it cost so much.
That.
So much CGI.
Yeah.
And this is my point: is if you're gonna spend that much money on a movie, make it look like Dead Reckoning.
Yeah.
If you're going to, there's a train chase in. I haven't seen the new Indiana Jones. I don't care about it. But in the trailer, there's a train chase.
It's all
CGI
dark
garbage.
and-
Yeah. In this movie, there's a train chase. Not only
And
there's a train fight on the top. Then there's a run chase through then it goes off the edge, and then it falls, and all this, and it's all practical.
It's all color, you can see it.
Yeah, they actually built each carriage, the interior, so that each one would be unique and each one would serve the action. And then they got an old steam train, and then they pulled it along, and then they built their own. I'm assuming it was a replica steam train, and they drove it off the end. You can tell.
Yeah, it looks
And
amazing.
I'm like, this is what we want. If you're going to spend this much money on a movie, do it real, do it practically. And we've talked before with Top Gun Maverick. One of the only reasons this gets done in these movies is because of Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
If it was Brad Pitt in Mission Impossible, it would be a CGI crapfest, and no one would care.
I also this is something we probably need to look into a little bit more. I'd also like to know the relationship. I want to know how Tom Cruise sees something like Fast and the Furious, and especially now where it's like, you're coming in on my territory now. Like, you know what I mean? Is there that kind of...
Oh, he'd love them all.
He would love them. But it's almost that thing of it like, well, I can't... Kind of like when you've got, say, Vin Diesel and his crew doing a similar kind of thing, mostly practical. Obviously, there's more CG.
There's more janky CGI.
There's more janky CG, but they try.
Yeah.
Right, with the cars and stuff. Obviously, you got Tom Cruise being like, well, I can't rest on my laurels because I actually have competition. Not much competition, but some competition.
I think
Tom Cruise's
cars.
I think he's like the Mission Impossible movies are still a card above the rest.
Yeah.
I've said this before with Fallout, but especially with Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning and Fallout put the last few Bond films to shame. And this is coming from a die-hard, like, James Bond fan since I was 3-4 years old, when my dad showed me these movies, probably maybe when I was too young. Like, I'm a huge Bond fan, and Fallout and Dead Reckoning put all of the Craig movies, except for Casino Royale, to shame. And the Bond people need to pick up their game.
Yeah.
Because this is what it's supposed to be. And not only the action, not only the stunts, because,
Spycraft and the
it's
story.
just the general story. It's well written, it's well paced. Yeah. The emotional stuff is emotional. The funny stuff is funny. It's well edited.
Yeah.
Which is very important, especially for Dead Reckoning, which is 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Didn't feel like it.
It flew past.
Yeah.
And, like... I remember with Fallout and even with Dead Reckoning, like they would film big action scenes and then cut them out of the movie because, it just pacing wise and it doesn't fit and doesn't whatever. And it's like you have to be good at not only writing, directing and the action side, knowing how to edit a movie, especially a long one. We've talked about most action movies now are crap. You got exceptions like the John Wick movie is pretty good. But other than that, Mission Impossible. And so the next time Bond comes out, they need to be putting the work in.
Yeah, well, if they're smart, they'll be tapping Christopher McQuarrie to either
just
write the script
at least give him a call and be like, look, can you help us out? Yeah.
No shaky cam.
Tips and tricks, yeah. Because, I mean, this also, speaking of Bond, this movie deals with an artificial intelligence kind of spy software that's gone rogue, and it's kind of working on its own. And there's this kind of stuff about, going offline, going analog, and, being a on-the-ground agent in the digital world.
It deals with the fact that technology is so able to track you everywhere and anywhere.
And I think this movie does it really well, whereas this movie does this movie does Spectre better than Spectre, because the Bond film Spectre, where they shoehorned in this awful subplot of like, you on the ground physical agents are obsolete because now it's all about cyber intelligence and it's the digital age and yada yada yada, and it was done awfully. Dead Reckoning does it really well without tripping over itself and getting too much up its own.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, here's a cool action plot, here's a MacGuffin they have to get a key, and it's just like, okay, now go. And also, here are the problems with the AI, here are the problems with the digital age versus being an actual on-the-ground agent.
Yeah, I mean, the Mission Impossibles have always kind of done this, but Nathan was saying to me after the film, it also deals with the whole kind of every country is in it for its own game. There's no like Ethan Hunt and his group are the only, to use this word loosely, heroes,
moralistic group.
Every other entity is in it for its own cause.
Even though the IMF seems to be an American
respect
agency.
for the fact that they acknowledged that the International Monetary Fund exists for the first time in this movie.
Yeah.
This also, like this,
the impossible mission.
The Mission Impossible movies, all of them have always had a bit of humor, especially from like 3 and 4 onwards. You've had like Benji and like the banter, and there's always been a little bit of quips and whatever. Dead Reckoning is the most deliberately funny.
Yeah.
Like there's moments where there's a moment at the beginning where Ving Rhames, Luther, and Simon Pegg's character, Benji, they're like bickering, like who's the better hacker.
Yeah.
That's a typical Mission Impossible joke. Like, not a joke, but they're
levity.
Yeah, that's typical for all the movies. This is the first movie, one where they're like being very meta about how silly things are, how the agent keeps grabbing people by the face to try to tear off their mask, and they don't have a mask, and so he's just pulling at their cheek or whatever. There's that stuff. There's a meta kind of funny stuff. But then there's also like really kind of, not zany. What's the word I'm looking for? Just a bit more absurd, a bit more.
Absurd, probably.
Yeah. And like there's like stuff where they're driving the Fiat and he's handcuffed to Hayley Atwell's character, Grace.
Physical comedy.
Yeah, and it's like they roll over the car and then they switch places and they look at it, they do a double take and they blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Or he's riding the motorbike upside her and she's like yelling, he's like, please stop, and she's like slowly rolling up the window. Like, this one's the one that's most deliberately funny.
One of my favorite parts of the whole film is a joke scene where he gets when he first gets the Fiat and he doesn't know how to turn it on, and he just pauses.
And he's like, sorry, the way
he's like, this usually doesn't happen, and she's like, it's okay.
No,
I was laughing my ass off.
There's a moment of just silence because he just sits there thinking, what do I do?
Yeah.
And
but also the way he reacts is like he can't get it up, and she's like, "It's okay, it's fine, it's okay." And he's
the way,
like, "I don't
the way
know.
they prepare these machines.
Yeah, he's just like, "It's not." Oh man, that was so funny. Like, and that's the thing is like, without it being a goofy Marvel-esque, quippy kind of movie,
I think
it's the most funny, and it works really well.
I was going to say that Venice scene, in particular with the Fiat
in Rome.
Yeah. That kind of. Like, that is almost like one of the top 10 Fast and Furious scenes. The kind of like,
well, they go down the Spanish Steps, which happens in Fast 10 as well. And me and my friend will look at each other and be like, this is the same.
But it's like top 10.
Oh, yeah, it's so
like
good.
To have all those different kinds of stunts and be able to pull them all off.
A lot of the stunt, there's a lot of, especially car chases and bike chases. We've seen a lot of this stuff before, but not executed this well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially...
Like, well, with this movie, you've got the kind of, you've got the tent spycraft, kind of the the airport scene. You've got
Yeah, the
like,
Abu Dhabi airport. The Tom Cruise running on the roof.
Yeah, I loved it.
I remember because he runs in every movie. Like that's his
Yeah.
thing. If you don't know, Tom Cruise's thing is he has to run in every movie, and it becomes like a showcase.
It's even in his Twitter bio. Running in movies
Yeah.
since
1981. Like that's a thing. And I remember watching the other, back in 2018, watching the other Mission Impossible movies, and as the movies go on, the more he runs, and the more of a showcase it is. But then I remember in Fallout when he's running in London to catch up to Henry Cavill's helicopter, and I was like, yes, this is the best running ever.
Yeah.
This movie almost tops that, where they just go, he's like running back and forth through the airport, and then he gets on the roof of the airport and he's running full. And I was like, to my friend, I leaned over, I'm like, take a drink every time he runs. And I'm like, you'd get drunk pretty quick.
I think but the fact that it pulls all the different aspects of the movie off, like all the spy stuff, like one of the scenes at the start where
gadgets,
he's got Tom Cruise has got a mask on and he's pretending to be someone else.
Yeah.
And you're not sure what's happening until the kind of the end of that scene.
Yeah.
And you like the fact that he pulls all the stunts off, the spycraft, all the different elements of it. It pulls it off well.
That's another reason why it's a good.
It's all convincing, yeah.
That's another reason why it's a good James Bond movie, is because the gadgety stuff and the espionage and spy stuff is done just as well as
Fast and Furious. But I wouldn't expect them to be able to pull off such a diverse range of kind of.
As much as I love Fast and Furious, and I've talked about how much a diehard fan. Dead Reckoning is like an 11 out of 10 movie.
Yeah, like it's
Fast and Furious is like, I enjoyed
what
this.
they can accomplish in the
But
movie.
it's also
is
just,
so well crafted.
There's parts of this film that is like, like action scenes are exciting, but there's parts of this movie that I put almost into thriller territory where, that scene in, I think it's Venice, where he's running through the alleyways.
Yeah, more.
Yeah,
running.
and it's like because there's someone interfering with his sense of direction.
Yeah.
So he has to, and then there's that intimate fight scene, and I was like,
in the little alleyway.
Yeah, and I was like, and
that was awesome.
It's a dark scene, but yet it's you can see it, you can see what's happening, which is something we talk about on the show all the time. Is people don't know how to light things anymore.
Exactly. This movie looks nice.
Yeah, but in this one you can tell what's happening. It doesn't interfere with the choreography. And the whole sequence just builds up to this dramatic.
Even though in terms
crescendo.
of the movie, it's a small action scene. Yeah. It's still just as well done as the big, large stunts and set pieces. Yeah, that's another reason it's a better Bond movie, because Pom Clementieff's character, the crazy assassin lady with the blonde hair. She's like a weird kind of. This is the most
like a mimey.
She's a Bond villain.
This is the most Bond villain-esque that Mission Impossible has gotten, because all the villains in Mission Impossible up until this point have been pretty straight-laced. This is the first time where we're getting something a bit more, a bit more colourful, and she's almost Harley Quinn-esque.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was she a mime or a clown, like with the face paint? I can't remember.
She just had white face paint because she was at that club, and she was dressed with that Sergeant Pepper's coat. Yeah, I don't know what call it, and then she had that kind of white makeup that was like
that club looked awesome.
Yeah, like it's. So good.
I did. It's interesting without going into spoilers. I did think it was interesting. I've seen Fallout recently. I haven't seen the rest of them too recently, but there's always at least someone in the American government that goes to bat for the IMF, right? At least in an unofficial capacity. Like
there's always a handler.
It was Alec Baldwin in recent movies and that kind of stuff.
Anthony Hopkins was in it in the second one.
Oh, okay.
Remember that? This is ancient history.
Yeah, no. What second?
What second movie?
Yeah. I found it interesting in this movie that there was no specifically good guy in the American government that was helping Ethan. They brought
Kittredge back from the first movie, so that was cool because he's in the first movie and he's kind of like an antagonist in the fact that he thinks Ethan has killed his team and gone rogue, and he has to prove that he's innocent. And Kittredge is just this kind of, bureaucrat who Tom Cruise is, Ethan Hunt is innocent, and Kittredge is just getting in the way. And then all these years later, 25 plus years later, they bring Kittredge back, and he's still that kind of bureaucrat who's like, I'm just here to give you missions and I don't have any feelings towards it. It's for the greater good. but he's still sort of a good guy.
I got more
in a
antagonist vibes from him.
But he definitely has that because, like in the first
The
movie,
history, yeah.
he's kind of neutral in the sense that if he needs to, he will throw Ethan and his team under the bus, which is what the IMF is there for. The secretary will disavow knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's more expressed in this one. He's like, look, I need you because that's what I do. I pick you because you're the best, and you do what you do because you're Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
And
But like, I did.
but then there's Carrie Elwes' character who's definitely more slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did find it interesting that this, because a lot of times with these movies, they don't necessarily
But I
glorify the American government, but they also don't kind of slander.
I think
them.
that's what's interesting about the IMF is it's an American agency, and it's kind of sort of tied to the CIA, but it's never, because it's there's a word for
independent or
there's a word where
almost
it's
like a
unofficial, non-official
special access, special access program.
Yeah, because it's a non-official.
Yeah.
They're non-official agents. If you get caught or killed, you get disavowed, and they will not attempt to help you or anything. And so in that way, and I think this movie, the last few movies have been about this, but this movie specifically has been about Ethan does this because he needs to be the guy he needs to save the world to keep people safe, even if he's never met them. And they talk about this in the movie. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're a stranger or someone I love, the world deserves to be saved. Yeah. And so the IMF in this way is almost stateless, because it's like, we're going to save the world. We don't care if Russia, Japan, China, America want it done. The threat has to be stopped. Yeah. So in that way, it's like not as typically if he was a CIA agent, or even though action movies, they're cops or agents just because that's the role that goes out and does action. So it's like, who cares if in real life those agencies are pretty horrible and America is not maybe perhaps the best role model. But in this case, it's like the IMF is this.
They have that code of honor,
and it's a very highly fictional sci-fi.
Yeah. They don't have the baggage that the CIA has in real life. They're separate from the dramas that occur in the real world.
Like I said, Ethan Hunt's character, specifically in this movie, especially, is just like, I'm about helping save the world, and it's not about doing what the boss says.
Yeah, it's about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Look, are we ready to get into spoilers?
Do I have anything else to say that's non-spoilery for people who haven't seen it? I'll just say that, like, it's for someone like me who can be quite harsh sometimes on certain movies or franchises, if I say it's good, it's good. And also, if someone like me who loves James Bond more than anything is throwing James Bond under the bus,
it's good.
Then it's good.
It's Tom Cruise, so I say it's good.
Well, but that's what I'm saying.
It's just a joke.
But that's what I'm saying is, it's like, people will say, even when Maverick came out, and I was like, not sure. I'll have to see the movie before I make a judgment. But Callum and Nathan were like, Tom Cruise, come on, man, best movie
Top
ever.
Gun sequel, let's go.
No, but usually on paper, Top Gun sequel, that's gonna suck. And just because Tom Cruise is in it didn't mean it was gonna be. But then it ended up being great.
But then again, Tom Cruise has also been denying a sequel for like decades.
But then I remember I was telling our friend of the show, Matt, like, you have to see, it's actually really good. And he's like, really? I said, look, if I'm saying this Tom Cruise action, sequel to a 35-year-old movie is good, it's good. And he saw it and he's like, holy crap, that was good. So, I mean, this is definitely worth seeing on the big screen. This is what big budget movies should be like. I'm very excited for Dead Reckoning Part 2. I assumed they were filming them back to back, but apparently that's not true, which is very disappointing.
The insurance company wouldn't have that, man.
Look, do one first, and then. But it's very disappointing because I want to, after seeing a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, as soon as it ended, I'm like, give me more.
Well,
I need to see part 2
I'm
now.
assuming part 2 will be out sooner rather than later, only because the man's 61.
But keep in mind the writer's strike has delayed things.
Yeah, I know.
So
But if it takes 5 years to come out, now boy's going to be 66, which is 40 years old in everyone else's age.
yeah.
But, you know,
Oh, look,
Tom
worst
Cruise,
comes to
is it Tom Cruise years? He's like dog years.
Worst comes to worst, he'll just have to have a stunt double. Worst
he'll
comes
never
to
do it.
worst.
He'll kill himself.
Oh, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think he'll do it. But I think that's why he's going so hard with the movies in the last few years, because he knows he's getting older. So he's
wants
like,
to
I'll
squeeze
do it
as
while I
many out.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would like him to just, once he gets too old for the stunt stuff, just do some dramas, man.
Also,
that's what I want.
He can
because,
do it.
because a lot of people know.
Collateral.
Because it's a lot of people know Tom Cruise as the action guy because they're not as familiar with his 80s and 90s career, which is he did more dramas and more thrillers. And
Yeah.
like I would like to see that, because one of the reasons I'm not so hot on Tom Cruise is like sometimes it's like he's just playing Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it's the John Cena problem. It's the, you know what I mean?
It's the Dwayne The Rock
The
Johnson
Rock,
issue,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah.
Which is why his role in Tropic Thunder is the best, because it's like a transformative.
Look, we'll be right back after this with spoilers for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. You're back on the Tuesday Review, talking all things Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Say that 5 times fast, James.
Oh yeah, jeez. It's Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, before we go into spoilers, I just wanted to say one more thing about the train sequence at the end, which isn't much of a spoiler because it's in all the trailers.
Yeah.
But we won't give anything specific away. But watching that, and maybe we'll talk more about it in spoilers, but watching that train sequence, which has CGI, but is mostly practical and has mostly, Tom Cruise and other actors. That's the other thing.
Some brave stuntmen.
The other actors, because Tom Cruise is doing it, a lot of the other actors do their own stunts as well. So shout out to them. But yeah, that train scene, it reminded me of Uncharted 2, the video game.
Yep.
And I'm like, if you're going to make a video game movie, put some effort in and do it practically, because what's the point of making a video game movie, which is basically an interactive animation, and then just doing CGI? Because, that Uncharted movie came out a while ago and didn't bother seeing it. Exactly. It's like, did anyone watch it? But it's like just CGI garbage. I'm like, if you're going to adapt a video game, do it practically, do stunts, build sets. Because it's like, this reminded me more of Uncharted than the Uncharted movie. This reminded me more.
It has all the kinds of... It's slightly different, obviously, with the sort of agencies.
It's around the world adventure.
But it's around the world adventure. They have the key, and the key's kind of
the,
Uncharted-y,
exactly. And then the train scene specifically, which happens in the game. I was just like, this is how you make a video game movie.
And also, Bad Guy Russians, it's evergreen.
Oh, can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go
if
wrong.
you need a good villain, just choose the Russians.
Yeah. That was spoilers. They were always the bad guys the whole time, even when they weren't. But yeah, before we get to the spoilers as well, we'll talk about this more a bit later. I also like how, similar to Fast and Furious, as the movies have gone on over the last 25 years, there's a growing cast, like returning cast members. And like Fast and Furious has the family, quote unquote. It's like, I like how this kind of does that as well. Whereas as the movies,
people into the IMF.
exactly, as the movies goes on, you get these returning characters. And like I said, they brought Kittredge from the first movie back, and I was just like, oh, they should bring Lawrence Fishburne from the third movie back. And I was trying to think who didn't get killed off, and I was like, oh, Maggie Q was in the third movie, and Paula Patton was in the fourth movie, and they haven't brought them back. And I'm like, oh, and even Jeremy Renner, who was in 4 and 5, he wasn't in 6 or 7. I'm like, for the big finale, if this is going to be the last, part 2 is going to be the last movie, they need to bring everyone back. But then Callum was saying he heard that
they've got at least one more in a market.
Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise were talking about possibly doing another one after that. So
apparently Tom Cruise says that they're already kicking around ideas for future movies.
Well, I was talking to my friend, because, for the last 10 plus years, Tom Cruise has wanted to make a movie in space. Like, not a movie set in space, a movie shot in space.
If there's anyone that has the chutzpah to actually do it, and possibly the connection,
and I was thinking, maybe potentially would he and Christopher McQuarrie, if they're talking about, ending Mission Impossible, would they combine those ideas and, have the end of Dead Reckoning Part 2 have to be on a satellite because they have to defeat the AI connection or whatever, and it's like actually filmed.
Could you imagine?
Because that would be
dangerous.
Because they keep topping themselves. I'm like, there's no way they can top this. And they keep doing it.
Would it be Tom Cruise being like in the International Space Station or something relatively safe like that, or then Tom Cruise would be like, I want to go on a spacewalk, and they'd be like, no, Tom, and he'd be like, I'm going to go on a spacewalk.
There's no way he would do it unless he could do EVA, extra vehicle activity. Is that what it's
I'm getting nervous to start this thing.
I know.
But I remember.
But also, we always say Tom Cruise had the death wish. Could you imagine?
And I've always said. This makes Callum uncomfortable, but I've always said Tom Cruise has to die doing a stunt, because if he just dies of old age in his bed, that's the nice way. But I'm like, he has to do something so crazy that he just
Tom
blows
Cruise
himself up.
doing a stunt in space.
Yeah.
Immortalize him forever.
And he just blows up, and it's just like, we're leaving that in the movie. That's how Ethan Hunt dies, and the rest of the movie goes on. And it's like, because that's how he has to go out.
For the audience.
Yeah. And also, this is the third movie this year that's supposedly the finale, part 2 finale. You've got Fast X Part 1, Part 2, which is now supposed to be a trilogy. You've got Spider-Verse Part 1 and Beyond. Yeah. It was supposed to be Part 1, Part 2, but it was, across
into the Spider-Verse, across the Spider-Verse, and
then the last one's Beyond. Yeah. So you got that, and now you got Dead Reckoning Part 1, and that ends, and now this, out of all 3 of those cliffhanger endings leading into the second part, this has the most kind of resolution.
Yeah. It definitely...
I feel like Fast 10 and Spider-Verse kind of end on a major cliffhanger, and you're like, I would agree. This has a big cliffhanger, but then it kind of wraps up, and it's like...
Well, it resolves
the first problem, right? The first problem is getting the key.
Yeah.
And the second problem is, what does the key do?
Yeah.
Where is
how do we defeat the evil? Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, the problem that they were trying to solve for most of the first movie is actually solved. They get the key.
Yeah. But it's just...
And then now it's just like, what do they do with the key? That's for the next movie.
More
which
so,
kind of works.
Yeah. More so than those other movies. It felt... But it also ended in a way where it's like, I have to see part 2. I can't wait. Much like Spider-Verse. Even Fast X.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need it. Hook it to my veins. Please. And now with the writer's strike, we don't know how long that's going to take. And I assumed they were animating Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse and Beyond the Spider-Verse at the same time, but apparently that wasn't true. So Beyond the Spider-Verse is still going to be a way off.
Yeah.
Fast X is still going to be a way off because I haven't started filming that. And apparently they haven't started filming Dead Reckoning Part 2, so that's going to be a way off.
Tom Cruise is just itching. They're just itching to start.
It's interesting.
But he's like, damn media press tours, damn it.
So it's
also, on the if Tom Cruise went to Netflix headquarters and said, "Look, about this writer's strike, you better deal.
Do what they tell you."
Yeah. I wonder if that. I wonder if that would.
So Cruise was saying that, like in his data, someone asked him, "What do you do in your downtime on the project?" And he was
Tom Cruise?
Yeah, because he
what does he do in his day to day?
Downtime. He doesn't have downtime.
No,
that's kind of what he said.
Do you think he sleeps, or he just kind of powers down? Like
he meditates.
He's like a shark. He has to keep moving. To sleep, he goes on a treadmill and just like.
He went on the project and like he was like super happy to see everyone, and they were asking him all these questions. And one of the questions was, "What do you do in your downtime?" And he said he doesn't really do downtime. He said that his life consists of doing like these things, like mixing, soundstage, like location scouting. So if he's not,
movies.
if he's not actually filming
and assumedly working out, physically exercising.
That's a given.
Yeah,
but if he's not filming, he's like doing production work, preparing to film.
Oh, I've always said like I have problems, with Tom Cruise's private life, and like I said, I don't love all his movies and all his performances. But I've always said like I always agree with you guys. He does put 110% in.
Yeah.
And he loves movies, he loves making movies, and he loves doing the best he can. And he loves other people's movies and helping them out.
And apparently he loves the audience too. Like one of the questions he got asked was like, do you ever get sick of fans being like, oh my God, you're Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he said, honestly, no. He says he loves it. He says it's what he does it for. And I'm like, that's such a, like I said, the man's personal life is complicated, whatnot. It's, in some areas overwhelmingly negative. But apparently he cherishes his fans, and he loves meeting his fans. He loves talking to them.
You always hear about, meeting a celebrity and then being an asshole. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
you don't
I used to
really-
get
Yeah.
disheartened by that. But I'm like, if you were that famous and you just couldn't walk the street without
Yeah.
people constantly putting stuff in your face, I can understand why you'd be a bit touchy. But you do appreciate it more when people like Keanu Reeves and Tom Cruise are willing to stop and take a photo with everyone and sign and talk to everyone about their...
Well, apparently he just likes asking what their favorite movies are and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
He
And
Like,
loves
sure, when
movies.
Tom Cruise asks you, James, what's
Oh,
your
yeah,
favorite
that's
movie?
what-
You'd panic.
Oh, as many conflicted feelings as it has towards
Yeah.
the man. If he came up to me, one, he's got those creepy eyes where you wouldn't be able to look away, and two, he'd be like, "Oh, nice to meet you. Oh, yeah, what is it?" And he was like, if I told him he had a podcast, he'd be like, "Oh, that's really. What do you talk about?" Like you just
that's right.
know he would make you feel like you're the center of the universe.
Yeah. Anyway,
And back to the
Anyway,
movie.
enough Tom Cruise.
Wankery. Yeah.
Tom Cruise simping. Tom Cruise simping. Name of the episode?
Yeah.
Tom Cruise simping.
Actually, I had a couple of small problems with this movie. I did
Non-spoiler?
not spoilers.
All right, so we'll go into spoilers.
We'll go into spoilers.
All right, spoilers.
Because we're quickly running out of time.
Okay, spoilers for
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Yes.
I did not like Grace as a character.
What?
Well, I like her. Her motivations are clear. She's fine. I did not like how Tom Cruise kept giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, yeah.
She got way
That's
too
fair
many
enough.
chances.
She kept
Way
like
too
trying
much
to
She kept
leave.
backtracking,
Yeah, that's
and
fair
she
enough.
kept kind of throwing him under the bus.
Yeah, I
he should
understand.
have caught on quicker. Yeah.
He should have been like, "Oi, you know what? Fine, go die."
Yeah,
Like, or whatever.
I understand that aspect, but personally, I love Hayley
No,
Atwell in this movie.
Her character was fine.
And-
I was the relationship between her and her and Ethan Hunt that I didn't like. How he was.
Yeah, it's
kind
like
of
after
giving
the
her-
first time she screws him over,
Yeah,
he
with the
should have been
screw-
like, yeah.
He should after the second
I
time.
do-
He should have been like, "I'm onto you."
I do like at
Yeah.
the end though how she spends the whole movie like trying to get away, and then they recruit her, and she's like, "No effing way," and then eventually, and then when he explains to her, which we were talking about earlier, about how like we have to be the last line of defense, we have to
Yeah.
protect the world when others won't, and to do this, we have to sort of cut ourselves off from a normal life.
Yeah.
And then when she agrees to help them, and then at the end she talks to Kittredge about being recruited to the IMF. So assumedly by the next movie she'll be like a junior IMF agent. So I'm like, there is growth there as a character. She might start off like screwing him over. But that's part of the comedy as well.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious when she's being taken out of the Italian police station, and she pretends Ethan like groped her or something.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
all these
yeah.
guys are like, "Hey, let's
yeah,
go."
yeah.
I love
and he's like, "Scusi."
I love all the.
And she's like, "Bye," and like gets away.
all the magician-y sleight of hand stuff is so cool.
That's from the first movie as well.
Yeah.
This movie feels closer to the first movie in terms of the spy espionage, the paranoia. This is the closest to that we've felt probably since then, while still keeping hold onto the more crazy,
the more modern-y stuff.
Ghost Protocol-y.
The one issue I had with the film was I think for me personally, for my tastes, I wouldn't have gone with such a science fiction-y kind of idea. So
This is the most as much as science fiction as the whole series is. This is the most science
yeah.
fiction.
So like the notion of AI, I think is like it's
A sentient.
Keep in
AI.
mind though,
Yeah.
like this was probably being written in like 2018, 2019. So maybe even earlier. So it's like this is more prescient than people perhaps might give credit for.
Yeah. But it's like through today's lens, it's kind of just awkward. It's like an awkward story.
I personally loved it because most movies when they have an AI character or villain are very cringy.
Yeah.
And I think this movie avoided that cringe.
Well, it's as grounded as it can be considering what it's trying to do. I just think if I was in charge of the story, I would keep it similar, but I'd do the vanilla thing and be like, oh look, it's a virus. You know what I mean? Which it's not as cool, but
I think
it's also
what I liked about this movie
not as science fiction-y.
and why it's better than a lot of other what I think it's better than Spectre and a lot of other kind of techno cyber AI sort of action movies is like it deals with that if the government gives an AI the ability to spy on everyone around the world at the same time, that's unlimited power.
Yeah.
And they even say it in the movie, and it's something we've talked on the show and privately before. Truth means nothing.
No. Yeah.
And they say it in the movie. It's like, trust no one.
We control what truth is
exactly.
if you have the entity.
Yes.
Which is what they call the
Which
AI.
is very... I mean, it's always been relevant, unfortunately, but especially now, in the post-Trump alternative
Post-truth.
facts,
I will say
post-truth era.
the entity is such a cool name for it. You know,
Well,
what I mean?
they say that take a drink every time Tom Cruise runs. Take a drink every time they say the entity, you'll be dead.
All right, we don't want to end up in hospital.
Yeah, but like they could have called it anything, but the entity makes it sound so ambiguous. Like it's an otherworldly life form.
Some people have a problem with it. I was talking to my friend. I was like, maybe they should have gave it a name, but I'm like, even a name probably would have been kind of cringe.
I like it because it's othering. You know what I mean? If you're going to be talking
it's just
about
we don't know what it is.
Yeah, if you're going to be talking about AI, it's cool to give it an alien kind of quality because you can't, for an actual AI, not like a large language model like we have now, like ChatGPT, for example, people refer to that as AI. It's not AI.
Really, no.
It's machine learning.
Yeah.
But like an actual...
It's basically autocorrect.
Correct. If it's an actual authentic AI, it's a completely different kind of presence to us.
It's an entity. It's its own entity.
It's an entity,
yes.
Correct. That's why it is a good name for it.
Yeah.
So problems I have with it, it does handle it in the coolest way that it can.
I was talking to my friends about this. I was just like, in this movie, I think it's handled well. For me personally, I know some people probably didn't like it, but for me, it avoided a lot of that cringe.
Yeah.
If in the second movie, they reveal the entity to have to be a person or to have the personality of a person downloaded or something like that.
Yeah.
If he gets to that control room and opens up where the entity is and it has the holographic face of his dead ex-girlfriend that they keep referring to at the start of the movie, I'm going to scream.
No,
I hope he doesn't get it, and it's just I hope he doesn't get there and it's like, hello, Ethan, I've been the one behind all your pain. I'm like, it better be, the most it should be is either just a blinking box that he shoots, or it should have a HAL 9000, it should be some lights and some panels, and it should have a HAL 9000 voice, and he should start pulling chips and wires out of it.
Well, we kind of already know what it looks like. We already kind of know what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
We see that
blue sphere looking thing.
Yeah.
And that's
but
cool.
I'm just saying, I hope that because we do have moments where the entity talks to Ethan using other people's voices.
No, like we see in the sub. That's like
no. I'm talking about we see the physical mainframe, whatever room, the brain of the AI.
Yeah.
But there are moments where the AI uses technology to communicate.
Oh yeah.
Either the bomb with Benji or using Benji's voice to trick Ethan. I'm hoping that it kind of just stays like that and the entity doesn't download itself into Gabriel.
No.
And so Gabriel, the henchman, becomes its human avatar.
That will be
I'm like, that's going too far.
They won't do it. I can't see why they would do that.
I do think what we will have is the entity, because obviously it's got all the information access, right? It will try and convince Tom Cruise that doing us the wrong thing to do, and it'll use kind of tricks and hacks to make Tom Cruise think it's the good guy.
It would be like that episode of the original Star Trek where Kirk has to argue logic with that robot until it self-destructs.
That would be entertaining. But I think there will be that kind of element to it where it's it's using all of its available data to be like, you don't do this because I'm the only one who knows about X, Y, or Z, or the truth behind this or that, or
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise just needs to pull out his gun and go blam, blam, blam.
Yeah, and then walk away. That's it. If they
stretch it explosions.
Out. Yeah, exactly. He should crash a car into it off a cliff.
That's it.
But
Tom Cruise driving the sub.
There's gonna be so much cool real underwater shit because you know Tom Cruise isn't just gonna be like, let's film it on a green screen like Avatar 2. Freaking James Cameron, Mr. Ocean himself, doesn't even go to the ocean to film his movies. But Tom Cruise is going to be like, I'm going to get in a submersible. I'm going to do James Cameron. I'm going to outdo James Cameron by actually filming. I'm excited for that.
So where else can we go with this? There's going to be more stuff in Russia, maybe?
I'm assuming the start of the movie is going to be in the Arctic or Antarctic.
Well, they don't know where it is, though, do they?
Well, that's true. Actually, they have to find the sub where the sub is, and then I'm assuming there's going to be a snow section.
Yeah.
Yes, or maybe they'll get a clue saying it was
'Cause
an original Russian program, so there might be some
Do you remember in the first movie
Moscow-y stuff.
when he's doing that thing where he comes down on the wires from the
Yeah.
ceiling and he steals the
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
And there's like this nerdy agent guy who works on the computer who they like give laxatives to, so he has to run to the toilet and make him sick. Apparently, like, and then at the when they find out Ethan's stolen that stuff, Kittredge says that guy should be on a plane to the Antarctic tonight. So I think it's going to be hilarious if that guy from the first movie he's like working at this little weather station in the Arctic or whatever, and you know Tom Cruise and his IMF crew rock up and are like, you
Not
know,
again.
and he's like, not you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited and I'm really looking forward to it. The biggest problem I had, because I liked Gabriel, the kind of human henchman
Representative.
of the AI, yeah. But I wasn't really sure about how they kind of retconned in this kind of
Backstory, yeah.
Ethan had this, you know, was in love with this woman named Marie, and Gabriel killed her, and it's like this led him on the path to the IMF. They also introduced this idea of a choice, which is not really ever been established that much in the previous movies, but they're very much like everyone in the IMF had a choice either to go to jail or like join the IMF. So that's kind of a new thing. And I don't really like this whole, like Marie died and then he became the Ethan we know.
Yeah.
And then, spoiler alert, just in case, everyone, this is a big one. Ilsa dies, R.I.P.
I didn't like that.
Which, yeah, I was just like, what? And I'm like, and then he has this flash at the end where he sees Marie's face and he sees Ilsa's face. I'm like, so did they just forget about his wife? I know she's not dead.
yeah.
But I'm like, all of Fallout was about him letting go of his wife and sort of finding a new partner with Ilsa. And then now she's gone and they introduce Grace, who's great, and Hayley Atwell's great. But I'm like, oh, this is... I don't know how I feel about this, especially if in part 2 they reveal the past with Marie and it becomes this convoluted...
Unless Ilsa's not dead.
Well, anything can happen.
We don't know.
You know, we talk about Fast and Furious. Anyone can come back from the dead. Anyone can tear off their mask.
Especially since Ilsa's first scene in this movie was incredible.
I was saying Jerry Morena should come in. It's like, yeah, it's Jerry Morena. And then he should take off his mask and it's
Ilsa.
Ilsa. It's Rebecca Ferguson.
I'd like that.
And then she takes off her mask and it's Jerry Morena again.
I am surprised we haven't got a double mask fake out yet in the series.
I was actually waiting for that, and I'm like, I think it's even too dumb.
yeah.
For like as silly as this movie can get, and it's kind of meta.
Yeah.
You know, because like there's Shea Wiggum's agent character who's like, you know, like I said, keeps pulling on people, and then his partner is just like, what if every time he went rogue he had a good reason? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, there's more meta commentary in this than I think all the other previous movies. But yeah, I'm a bit worried about how they're going to handle the AI and the whole Marie backstory with Gabriel and...
For what it's worth, I think that Christopher McQuarrie, or as Tom Cruise calls him, McHugh.
McHugh, yeah.
McHugh and Tom Cruise.
McHugh, please come on the podcast.
Oh, please.
Oh, and Tom Cruise and TC.
Yeah,
TC on the TR, Tuesday Review.
That's
TC
it.
on the TR.
We're cruising for Cruise. Please come down. I think that this is their baby. You know what I mean? I think, and Tom Cruise is involved with every aspect of production from the sounds of things. He even talks about the importance of story. They're always looking for angles with characters and how to make people connect to each other. So I think that knowing that they have a plan in place, they talk about it all the time apparently. Like, so I think I trust them. I think that they will take the smoothest way forward.
Yeah.
They won't make dumb decisions just for the sake of it because they know, at least Tom Cruise says, it's like, the audience can tell. Yeah. So he's always thinking, I don't think he's the kind of guy who would write down to the, you know what I mean? It should be fine.
My thing was when Rogue Nation came out, and Christopher McQuarrie wrote and directed that one, it just felt like they were kind of making up as they went along and it felt a bit clunky to me and I didn't vibe with it. It wasn't until Fallout, until everything fell into place. I was like, this is great. Yeah. And one of the things was Fallout was when Tom Cruise was doing that stunt where he jumps and he broke his ankle. They had to take like 8 weeks off. And so Christopher McQuarrie got some extra time to work on the script and change some stuff. And Fallout ended up being really good and sort of was a good culmination of all the things I wasn't vibing with before. And Dead Reckoning, the same. They went on hiatus twice because of COVID. They were delayed twice.
Yeah.
And so he got more time to refine it. And now with the writer's strike and so on, I mean, who knows when the next one will come out.
But it gives Christopher McQuarrie enough time
exactly,
to see.
I'm hoping by the time we get to that one, I'm like, he's worked out all the kinks. And even, I think him and Tom Cruise are talented enough and have worked together long enough to the point where they can kind of come up with things on the fly that don't bring the movie down or don't make it feel uneven.
Because they'd have a feel for it. They have a sense for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like they understand their franchise.
And I'm hoping if he's written this as part one and deliberately
They have an
tied it
arc
up,
in
I would
mind.
imagine they know what's coming.
more so than
Yeah.
something like Fast X, where it's supposed to be part 1 and 2, and now it's part. You know, there's going to be 3.
Part 1 of 7.
I feel like, and there's going to be the spin-off with The Rock, and it's like, oh, they're just making up. If it makes money, they'll keep making more. I assume it's more like, okay, we're definitely
This is the story we want to tell.
Yeah.
But we want to break it up into
and
two
they've set up
halves.
the submarine and they've set up the backstory.
Because I imagine there is a portion of this product development where they're just like, these are the stunts that Tom wants to do. We can't fit them all
That's
in.
what they do. That's what
Yeah.
Tom Cruise goes to McHugh and says, I want to do a stunt where I jump a bike off a cliff. And McHugh says, I want to crash a train. And they wrote it. And so it's like they combine those two things.
So there's probably like a stunt wish list on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And they're just like,
But see,
pick a few for a movie.
But see, the you know, a good action movie isn't just good set pieces. It's getting someone who can link them together.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And you don't have to have the most complex or deep story, but it's just getting someone who can write a good action movie. And this is what the James Bond people need to do. Barbara Broccoli, if you're listening, come on the podcast. Like, they need to get someone. It's like, don't go so, because a lot of the Craig movies got so far up their own ass where it's like, this guy's related to this guy and I'm from your past and this is, and I'm hoping that this doesn't happen with the whole Marie thing in Mission Impossible. But they just need to, like I've always said with James Bond, walk into M's office. He gives him a mission. He goes around the world, defeats the villain, gets the girl, end of movie. That's it.
Yep, that's it.
And I think Mission Impossible, Fallout, and Dead Reckoning Part 1 are good examples of movies with overarching story and character growth, but also they're just good action movies. He's got a mission to do. He's got a MacGuffin he has to get.
One might say it's impossible almost.
Mission Improbable.
That's it.
And nothing's impossible for Tom Cruise.
Mission a bit difficult.
Yeah. Mission. We should call it Mission Tuesday because this is just another day of the week for Tom Cruise and for Ethan Hunt and the IMF crew.
Yeah.
Oh no! Actually, they make that joke in the movie.
Yeah,
like,
they do. Yeah, this is
Benji's
Monday,
like,
yeah.
it's this is like this is, or as we call it, Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon we're just about all out of time.
Yes.
Right?
Sorry, I was ranting. I got excited about an actually good movie for once.
Yeah.
Yay!
A Tom Cruise movie. Welcome to the
Yeah.
club.
Not
the
for
first
listening,
time.
everyone. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. You can follow us on the Tuesday Review AU on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads.
Threads, yes. Delete Twitter. We're off that crap.
We will be posting one last thing on the Twitter,
Which
and
is
that's just
go to
going to
the
be a
Threads.
redirect
Yeah.
to our Threads
At
account.
Tuesday Review AU for the Facebook, the Twitter, not the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram, and Threads. So follow us on Threads. Instagram's still our main place, but Threads will be our new place as well. And it has a lot of the same functionality as Instagram. So make sure you're following us because there's a lot of stuff coming up. Wink, wink, nudge,
The
nudge.
things we can't talk about.
Yeah, and we're not just saying that this time. I know
Yeah,
sometimes we
yeah.
say, "Oh, keep out." No, this time there's some big stuff happening.
We're
so make
excited.
sure you're following us and listening.
All right. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.